Hey everybody, this is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the LG Stylo 6 and the Apple iPhone 12. Let's get started. So the LG Stylo 6 has a 6.8-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 395, an aspect ratio of 20.5 by 9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 82.5%. The iPhone 12 has a 6.1-inch OLED display with a resolution of 1170 by 2532, a PPI of 460, an aspect ratio of 19.5 by 9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 86%. So looking at these two phones, the LG Stylo 6 definitely has a much larger display, but the iPhone 12 has a better quality display with a higher resolution, an OLED display instead of an IPS LCD, which means the colors are going to be a lot brighter and more defined. The iPhone has a higher PPI as well, and the screen-to-body ratio is larger, which means the bezels are smaller. As you can see here, even though the screen of the LG Stylo 6 is quite a bit bigger, the iPhone has much smaller bezels, and overall, it looks a lot more sleek and modern than the LG Stylo 6, which looks pretty bulky. Now the LG Stylo 6 has a water drop for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 13 megapixels. I'm not really a big fan of the water drop front-facing camera, but it does look okay for this phone. The iPhone has a 12 megapixel front-facing camera that is right here in this little part of the bezel. As far as the design goes, I would say the iPhone does look a little bit better, but if you're doing a lot of content consumption and stuff like reading, where you really benefit from a much larger screen, then the LG Stylo 6 would have an advantage there. Now both of these phones have 64 gigabytes of internal storage, but the LG Stylo 6 has microSD card expansion, whereas the iPhone 12 doesn't, so the LG Stylo 6 does have an advantage as far as storage goes. That being said, there are variants of the iPhone 12 that have 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage, but those are a lot more expensive. I would say 64 gigabytes is pretty decent. It's not the best, but it's still acceptable. If you have a lot of really large apps, you might run into some trouble there. But with microSD card expansion on the LG Stylo 6, you'll at least be able to hold a lot of photos and videos on the microSD card to free up some space on the phone for more apps. Whereas with the iPhone 12, you wouldn't really be able to do any of that. But at the end of the day, unless you have a lot of big apps or keep a lot of photos and videos on your phone at all times, you're probably not going to have that much of an issue with either of them. Now, the LG Stylo 6 does not have wireless charging, but the iPhone 12 does. So that is a difference. If you do like wireless charging, I personally like it. I don't really use it that much, so I don't really think this difference is that crucial. But if you do, it is something to keep in mind. So the iPhone 12 has Face Unlock and the LG Stylo 6 doesn't, but the LG Stylo 6 has a fingerprint scanner and the iPhone 12 doesn't. Unfortunately, neither of these phones have both. I really wish they did because having both options is nice because then no matter what situation you're in, you're unlikely to have to use a pen or anything like that, but at least each of them has one option. The fingerprint scanner on the LG Stylo 6 is located right here in a pretty easy to reach spot. Let's go ahead and test this out and see how it performs. One more time. There we go. It's really fast and responsive. I don't have any complaints here. It works really well. Now, taking a look at these camera setups, the LG Stylo 6 has a 13 megapixel rear camera, a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. And the iPhone 12 has a 12 megapixel rear camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. So basically the same. The iPhone 12 doesn't have a depth sensing camera, but that's really only there for portrait mode, which the iPhone 12 most likely has it condensed into the rear camera anyway, so it doesn't really make a big difference. So these pictures were taken by the rear cameras of each phone. As you can see, the LG Stylo 6 does take pretty good pictures. The colors are really well balanced and the image is overall pretty sharp. But I do think the iPhone 12's pictures are a little bit better. The details are more high quality and the colors are a little bit stronger. And I would also say the phone handles the lighting a little bit better as well. That's most likely due to a better sensor. It looks a little dim on the LG Stylo 6, whereas with the iPhone 12, you can really see the strength of the light. These pictures were taken by the ultra-wide cameras. I think both of them are really good, but I do think the iPhone 12 is a little bit better because this ultra-wide camera did capture the details a little bit stronger, whereas if you look really closely on the LG Stylo 6, the details are a little bit distorted and not as sharp. These pictures were taken with the front-facing camera. Again, I think the same thing does apply. The LG Stylo 6 does take really great photos, but the iPhone 12 just does it a little bit better. For videos, the LG Stylo 6 can shoot in qualities up to 1080p for both the rear and the front cameras, and the iPhone 12 can shoot up to 4K in both the rear and front cameras. So for videos, the iPhone 12 is definitely going to have the advantage in quality here. And in terms of overall camera, the iPhone 12 is going to be better, but at the same time, with the LG Stylo 6, it does take some really great pictures. And even though the highlights are a little bit bright for my taste, and the image itself doesn't have as much life or detail as the iPhone 12, I do think that the camera on the LG Stylo 6 is usable for any purpose you might want to use it for. That being said, if you want the best quality possible, then I would say the iPhone 12 is going to be closer to that. Now internally, the LG Stylo 6 is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio P35 processor, and the iPhone 12 is getting 4GB of RAM with the Apple A14 Bionic processor. We ran Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and the LG Stylo 6 came back with a single core score of 170 and a multi-core score of 964. And the iPhone 12 came back with a single core score of 1591 and a multi-core score of 4089. Now, this is a huge difference. With the LG Stylo 6, you're most likely going to struggle with anything that is more intense and demanding, like photo and video editing and gaming, that sort of thing. It should be fine with any type of web browsing or content consumption, even social media, depending on which platform. Some of those can get a little bit demanding, depending on what's on them. But with the iPhone 12, this phone is going to be able to do pretty much anything you want it to do. So there's a huge difference here. If you're using your phone for more high-end activities, then you're definitely going to want to look at a phone like the iPhone that has a lot more processing power, because the processor of the LG Stylo 6 for a phone of such quality and features is really not very strong. Now, the LG Stylo 6 has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and the iPhone 12 has a 2,815 milliamp hour battery. So huge difference here. The iPhone 12's battery is much smaller. In fact, it is one of the smallest batteries I've actually seen. Whereas with the LG Stylo 6, it's not giant, but it is a pretty decent size. So as time goes on and the battery degrades, you're not going to notice it as much with the LG Stylo 6 because the battery is bigger, whereas with the iPhone, you're going to notice it more. Not only that, but of course, a bigger battery is going to get more life per charge. This is something to keep in mind if you're on the go a lot and don't always get the chance to plug your phone in and still have to use it frequently. Having a bigger battery will definitely help with that. Now, in conclusion, which of these devices is better? I think it's safe to say that in almost every category, the iPhone 12 is going to be the better phone. There are a couple smaller advantages the LG Stylo 6 has, but definitely with the iPhone, the display is much higher quality. You're going to get much more processing power. You get flagship features like wireless charging that don't come with non-flagship phones typically. And of course, you get a much better camera if you're trying to take a lot of really high quality pictures. The advantage of the LG Stylo 6 is that micro SD card expansion if you have a lot of things that you hold on your phone, and of course, a larger battery. And then if you do prefer a larger display, that is an advantage as well. And again, you also do have to consider what kind of features are you actually going to be using? Because if you only do basic activities, then the iPhone might not really be that worth it for you, because this phone is really meant for more intense things. Whereas with the LG Stylo 6, if you're just doing basic activities, maybe taking pictures here and there, then this phone is going to work out just fine. There's also the possibility that you might want to do more intense activities or just do more serious stuff, like taking photos for websites and more serious social media. Or if you're doing video editing or a little bit of gaming, then you might want something in between these two phones. And in that case, something like the OnePlus Nord N10 5G or the Samsung Galaxy A42 5G might be a little bit more of middle ground for you. That's not quite the level of the iPhone 12, but is a lot more powerful and a clear step up from the LG Stylo 6. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.